council meeting is going to start here at 5 o'clock. Just do a roll call to make sure that we have quorum. I have, is Ward 1 here? Is she on?
She is not on Zoom.
Okay, so Ward 2?
Here.
Ward 3?
Here.
Ward 4, we do have a quorum. All right, we're going to go to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to go on to citizens to be heard. I have 2 entries today. We're going to go with Jennifer Day.
Hi, Council. Jennifer Day, 902 East Cornwall, Rockport, Texas. I'm the Executive Director for Rockport Cultural Arts District, and I'm here to talk about item 9 on the consent agenda. Christmas in the district was extremely successful event this year, even though it was a very time-sensitive, first-time major approved program that required an aggressive effort to make happen. It was very successful. Thank you for your approval to support funding for this 7-week event, which included leading, directing, and communicating with 45 different businesses, venues, organizations, and vendors for a cohesive event, and working out mechanical challenges and monitoring daily Christmas in the district. The events included downtown Christmas tree and a Hallmark Christmas tree lighting with Santa attending, an ice skating park, extended downtown business hours for 35 businesses, lighted train rides and vintage Christmas in the Railroad Museum, Santa's mailbox with photos of Santa, elves, and/or nutcrackers, Santa driving through downtown in a Ford Model T, live music, pop-ups, artist demonstrations and receptions, a photo contest which promoted Christmas in the district on social media. Last Thursday evening, RCAD held a district merchant meeting and reviewed stats and feedback as well as lessons learned from the merchants and venues. Merchants reported sales up from 6% to 27% during Christmas in the district. City hot and sales tax reports are expected this Friday for December, and we look forward to seeing these stats reflected in those reports. The estimates referenced on RCAD's hot report are from geofencing software from the Texas Historical Commission and from Placer AI. Thank you again for your support of this impacting event for our tourism industry, but also for the immeasurable impact it had on our local community and their willingness to work together. 2 conversations I want to share with you. I had a lady call me from Johnson City who visited Rockport in December, and she had worked with lights in Johnson City and asked me, how did you get everybody to participate? Because they had had difficulty with their 100% participation in their downtown. I explained our regular merchant meetings and the common goal to enhance the district, resulting in positive impact to their business. I also relayed most of us have been through a major catastrophic event together. We've grieved together, we've rebuilt together, and we work together for the good of our downtown. The second conversation was with Steve Russell last night. He's a native-born Rockportian. He will be 80 years old this year, so he's grown up here. And he said to me last night, he has never seen downtown so full of people, activities, and vehicles as it was during Christmas in the district in all his 80 years. Nonprofits are the creative fabric of this community, and I thank you for your time and support. Respectfully.
Thank you.
Mayor, one question. Ms. Day?
Yes.
I know we're not supposed to have a conversation back and forth. Just want to confirm that the percentage increase was 6 to 29?
6 to 27% is what the businesses reported.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Day.
Thank you.
The next one we have is going to be Jatin Bhakta. He's also speaking on Christmas in the district.
Good evening, Council. Jatin Bhakta, 224 Reserve Lane. When we went through the budget process for Christmas in the district, I told you I'll keep track of the numbers on my end as well. just to put a little bit of background, of the 500 hotel rooms or so, the quality hotel rooms, I have about 50% of those. So just going through the November numbers, between the three of our properties, we're up 124 room nights. That for November, I can contribute that to the Warbirds because they filled up two of our hotels compared to the year prior. So 124 room nights in November, most of that coming from the Warbirds. In December, we were down about 80 room nights from 2024 numbers. And again, we've had Christmas in the district. I'm not sure where the hotel taxes are gonna come out, but I don't think it was a hit for the hotels on our end. I've talked to a couple of the other hoteliers, they didn't see the uptick. I know on the packet that was given out to council, it had something about 8,800 room nights. That's probably pushing it even during that December timeframe. We're looking at collectively between three of our hotels, it's less than 3,500. So to contribute that, I get it. It's probably traffic that was already here that made their way to downtown, went and saw the lights, but I think going forward, maybe for the next budget year, you're gonna have to look at maybe doing this. Apparently, the sales tax were up, so maybe we need to probably do something on the sales tax end of it, but on the hotel tax, I don't think it's reflective of what we spent. Because this is, again, when you back the numbers out, which was, I think, $40-something thousand given, that's about $500,000 worth of rentals. That means $500,000 worth of room rentals or short-term rentals would have to happen for that number to be generated. So it puts it into perspective of when we give out these funds. I mean, yes, it's Christmas, it's district, it's a great thing, but I think the wealth has to be shared here and maybe sales tax or some other funding source if we do move forward. So those were just my numbers I wanted to share with you, so thank you.
I've got a question, and I know that makes we're not supposed to. Can we get that, where can I get that data from, and what have the, just, can you?
So we have bought into some very accurate software that will tell us where everybody came from and things like that. It'll be a couple of weeks, but we'll have that data for you, and it'll be, we'll rope off downtown and pull everything that was lighted and see how many visitors. It'll give us where they came from. And the test for hot taxes is a 70-mile distance, so we'll have everybody that came over 70 miles. We'll have an exact number.
Okay, and it'll have some of his data, at least, it'll have total hotel rooms used and for the month of December and what have you?
It won't give us hotel rooms, but it'll give us numbers.
Okay.
It'll give us the number.
Okay. That just helps me understand.
Yeah, and I think going forward, I think the way I would like to see this, if I was in your shoes, is like maybe since we do have a CVB now, maybe them vet it first before it comes to council.
Yeah, and this is a great conversation. We can't go back and forth too much, so
Yeah.
just because it's a citizens to be heard, but yes, thank you.
And just for reference, our March budget workshop is going to be talking about the HOT process. Not awarding, not anything other than talking about the process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bhakta. Okay, we're gonna go on to ceremonial matters, proclamations, and employee recognition. This is for Nestor Shawner, so Tenure Tuesday.
I'm not gonna get up tonight because our
No one blames
recipient
you.
is not here, but Reagan Lauterbach has been with us for 5 years now. She's worked in 2 positions within the city, and I'm very proud to have her as my executive assistant now.
Great job, Reagan. Okay, we're gonna go on to the consent agenda. The following items may be acted upon as single motion. No separate discussions or actions on any of these items will be held unless pulled at the request of a member of the city council. Would the city council like to pull any of these? Then I will, someone make a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, I will just say Ward 2,
Aye.
Ward 3,
Aye.
Ward 4, aye. All is approved. We are now going to go to agenda item number 10. Consideration the approval of the amendment of the utility services agreement with Rockport Landing LLC. Vanessa?
We had sold some LUEs, living unit equivalents of water and wastewater, to Rockport Landing LLC a couple of years ago. I want to say about 3. They had sold off some of theirs, I think about 200. Is that the right number? They'd sold off about 200. They have about 100 LUEs left, and they want to extend the time frame. We typically sell them for about 7 years. They wanted to go ahead and get 10 years. So we have asked them for a $300 an LUE payment to extend those for 3 more years beyond what they'd contracted to us for.
Council, any questions?
Mayor, I move to approve item 10 as presented.
I'll second.
Ward 2,
Aye.
Ward 3,
Aye.
Ward 4, aye. Agenda item number 11, consider the ratification of Amendment Number 2 to the agreement with DLF Two Incorporated for additional hand trenching, PVC pipes, and cement work that was completed to connect our city and county facilities for an amount not to exceed $5,750. Ms. Henry?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So this item, I know it is a year late, but we're just now getting the paperwork for that. But it was for additional hand trenching, a little bit more PVC, but majority of it was the hand trenching and the additional cement that was put in to cover those AT&T lines and the lines they put down, as well as any other utilities, city utilities. So this was just cleanup from the end of that. There are sufficient budget funds.
And this came from last year's budget? Was it
No,
left?
this is in the city hall budget.
Okay.
And this will close it out,
This will close that piece of the
that piece
project
of the
out.
project out.
Mayor, I move to approve item 11 as presented.
And I'll second.
Okay, Ward 2,
Aye.
Ward 3,
Aye.
Ward 4, aye. Items approved. Agenda item number 12, receive a follow-up wastewater study presentation of the original study prepared for the city in 2024. The rate plan will include a proposed pass-through rate for the cost from San Patricio Utility District, if I can talk today, and will be designed to encourage water conservation and to enable the city to recover significant revenues to fund operating costs and meet key financial objectives. Robbie?
Good evening, Council. Council Mayor Pro Tem. We have with us Dan Jackson with the Willdan Group. This is a follow-up short study. This is following up from the August of 2024 full study. This is prompted because of the stage 3 water restrictions that and the higher costs that were passed through Sampat mud to us, and that we're needing to try to recoup and to also look at and tweak our water and wastewater rates as well. And so Dan's here to help us review that and give us some possible alternatives, and to look at a water cost pass-through as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the chance to be here. My name is Dan Jackson, Vice President of Willdan Financial Services. We've had the privilege of being the City of Rockport's water and wastewater rate consultants for the last several years. We assisted the city with a rate study back in the 2023 and early 2024 time period, where we recommended the implementation of a long-term water and wastewater rate plan that would get you the revenues that you needed, while to the best extent possible trying to minimize the impact of any inevitable water rate increases on your ratepayers. We also looked at a couple of other issues like outside city customers and the increasing cost of wholesale water service from your water provider. Now, a study and a forecast is not a guarantee. It's a prediction based on a series of reasonable expectations. And you've had a lot of impacts that have happened to the city in the last couple of years. We did recommend that every couple of years you review the study and see where you are as opposed to where you thought you would be, which would give you the opportunity to make any adjustments as necessary. And so there have been some pretty significant developments in the last couple of years that I'd like to go over in my hopefully brief presentation tonight, if I can get this to work. That's a very good question. It is amazing how much better these things work when you turn them on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your current rate plan right now. Then I'm going to talk about developments with your customers and your water consumption. Some of your consumption data has been pretty extraordinary the last year or two. Then I'm going to talk about your revised cost estimates. Then I'm going to present to you a couple of different proposed alternative rate plans. I've often said that rate making is an art, not a science. There's a lot of different rate structures you can put in place that will get you the revenues you need. The key is, what is the most fair, just, and reasonable rate plan? Well, the most fair, just, and reasonable rate plan is the one that you decide is the most fair, just, and reasonable rate plan. You, as a city council, have a lot of flexibility to decide what is the most appropriate rate plan. And then I'll just kind of summarize and we'll talk about next steps. Okay. Once again. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay. I want to start out by talking a little bit about developments since the completion of the last rate study in the late 2023, early 2024 time period. There have been several factors that have impacted your water and sewer utility. First and most importantly, we've seen an extraordinary decrease in water consumption due to the implementation of Stage 3 water restrictions. I've been doing this for almost 40 years. And I don't think I've ever seen such a significant sudden drop in usage as I've seen here over the last couple of years. Your water usage per customer has dropped by 25%. That's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And the thing about water is a bulk commodity. The more you sell, the less you need to charge per 1,000 gallons. And unfortunately, the reverse is also true. The less you sell, the more you have to charge per 1,000 gallons. Secondly, your San Patricio Municipal Water District has increased their rates a little faster than what we anticipated. They're subjected to the same cost increases and cost pressures as everybody else. Third, your actual growth has been a little bit lower than forecast. And finally, you have increased your general fund transfers. Your general fund transfers were very, very low, and you have increased them to be more reflective of the cost contributions that have been provided by other city departments. Funds transfers are a very common form of financing for utilities. A utility gets support from every other department within the city. And the well-run utility reimburses those other departments for the support that is provided. And your funds transfer has been very low in recent years, and it is now a little bit more in accordance with what you see with a lot of other utilities. But unfortunately, all these factors together are resulting in the need for you to revise your rate plan. So, what do people pay for water and wastewater service here in the city? Well, I think you'll find that your water rates right now, your water and wastewater rates, are very competitive when you compare them to a lot of other surrounding utilities. For the average residential customer who uses 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service, here in the city of Rockport, that customer pays $97.33. We did this comparison to selected other communities in this general region. And as you can see, you're right about where you would expect to be. Yes, sir.
Are we supposed to stop and ask questions as we go along, or?
Yep, feel free, please. Go
The
right ahead.
9733, that's water and sewer combined?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. And it's just water and sewer. It doesn't include stormwater, taxes, or anything else. It's just basic cost of water and sewer service. And so as you can see, you're right about where you would expect to be. You're higher than some, you're lower than others. Now the thing is, rate comparisons are not perfect. They're very subjective. For example, 30% of utilities in the United States charge rates that don't cover their costs. So just because another utility's rates are lower than yours, that doesn't necessarily mean that their costs are lower or that they run a more efficient system. It might mean that they are subsidizing their water and sewer fund from their general fund. Now, it's not illegal to do that, but it's not always the best financial policy. Also, I work for over 100 utilities here in the state of Texas alone. And I work for some utilities that have incredibly low rates. But they have low rates because they're not putting any money into their system. They're not, their salaries are way too low. They're not doing any capital improvements, and their system is deteriorating in quality. So while it is always beneficial and it is always a good
objective to try to keep rates as low as possible. The well-run utility has to balance that desire with the need to invest in your system to ensure that you continue to provide an acceptable level of service. So the lowest rates are not always the best objective. And so you can see from this chart that when you look at a selected group of cities, you're right about where you would expect to be. Now, we could add more cities, we could subtract some cities, but I have a feeling you could do all of that. You could do that all day long, and you're gonna end up with pretty much the same answer. The key question from this chart is, are what people in Rockport pay for water and sewer service, is it disproportionate to what other people pay in this part of the state of Texas? And the answer is clearly no. You're right in the league with what other people pay. Okay. I don't know why. All right, there we go. All right, just a couple of quick background slides here. You've got about 10,500 water customers here. One of the things that's a little bit unique about Rockport is that you have a higher percentage of outside city customers than what you typically see for most cities. It's not unprecedented, but it is a little bit higher than what you normally see. You have about 4,500 outside customers and about 55 or 6,000 inside customers. On the wastewater side, you've got about 6,600 customers, and again, predominantly inside city limits, but you do have some outside city customers as well. Okay, this is an interesting chart here, because this chart shows historical and forecast customer water consumption, both what it has been in the future, what was projected in the last study, and what is actually occurring right now. Look at what happened. When we did this study back in 2023, you were seeing some fairly, steady growth, about what you would expect to see. Water, you're a growing community, you're adding more accounts, so your water usage was growing a little bit. So, the thing about about projecting water usage is people use water in a very consistent manner. They tend to use about the same amount of water next year as they used last year, barring any significant change in their familial relationships. And so, usually what you do is you take what has happened in the past and you kind of project that it's going to continue to go forward. But look at what actually happened. Look at how water usage plummeted in 2024 and 2025. In 2024, the average residential customer used 5,982 gallons of water a month. In 2026, that average has gone down to 4,348. That's a 25% reduction. Now, if I had come back in the 2023 study and projected those actuals and said, your usage is going to drop by 30% over the next couple of years, you would have brought out, you would have put me away. You would have said, go back to Dallas or wherever it is you come from. It just was not expected. And it has had significant ramifications because your usage levels have gone way down. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime in the near future. And so for that reason, we're going to have to adjust the rates accordingly. Okay, so let's now talk about your operating and your capital expenses. Your operating expenses continue to go up 3-4% a year. The cost of everything goes up by 3% a year, so that's not unusual. However, your San Patricio rate increases are now expected to go up by about 7% a year. That's not outside the realm of reasonableness. The average water rate is going up 5 to 6% a year across the state of Texas, so they're a little higher than average. But it is higher than what we thought it would be a couple of years ago, and so that has to be taken into consideration. At the same time, your annual transfer to the general fund has increased as well as a result of some analysis that the city did the last couple of years. And then finally, we on the positive side, we've reduced our assumption for future debt issuances from $50 million down to $25 million. That has helped offset the adverse impact of some of these other expense increases. Yes, sir.
That last bullet point there of your CIP debt reduction projection, that's substantial. Can you explain a little bit? In other words, I was here for your last study just a couple of years ago. You were projecting the CIP roughly, we were gonna need about 50 million to take care of things, and you're now projecting 25?
Right, couple of reasons for that. First, your growth hasn't been quite as much as thought, as was anticipated. Secondly, your water usage has plummeted. And then thirdly, that was a pretty aggressive plan back in 2023. I mean, $50 million was a lot. And the thing about capital plans is you always have to balance what you need to spend with how much your ratepayers are willing to pay. And so, given the fact that you have had some adverse impacts on your water and sewer fund, we had several conversations with city staff, and it was decided that to try to offset that, we will scale back some of the immediate capital projects and push them out a couple of years.
Okay.
Very common.
All right, that's because what I'm thinking of Ryan and his team, if, again, that's a 50%
Yeah.
reduction. That's a big reduction. Are you okay with those numbers? That because that, I mean, it basically that says $25 million you're not going to get in the next 5 years to do projects that you had planned, for the next, again, 5 years plus. Is that something your team can?
Yeah,
swallow?
definitely. We took this into consideration coming in. We just did our first budget meeting, so I mean, we didn't come in asking for a lot, but we also invested in streets and some other places. So
Okay.
we're willing to push things out.
So this level of what I would call a substantial reduction is not crippling your team?
No, it is
Okay,
not.
thank you.
Okay, this rather colorful chart right here just shows that over the next 5 years, the total cost that you will incur in providing water and wastewater service is expected to continue to increase. It's about $16.3 million in the current year, 2026. You see it's broken out into operating, San Patricio, transfers, and debt service. And it's expected to trend up to about $20 million by 2030. Again, we know that costs are going to continue to go up, so we can phase in a new rate plan accordingly that will recover all of your expenses while hopefully, to the best extent possible, trying to minimize the impact on your ratepayers. Okay, so given that, what we're going to do is we're going to provide you a couple of different alternative rate plans for you to consider. The first rate plan is what we call kind of the status quo rate plan. It basically keeps the same rate structure you have right now, but just has additional percentage increases. The second one will address the idea of implementing a San Patricio pass-through rate. But let's talk about the first rate plan. In the first rate, the last rate plan that you reviewed and adopted had annual rate adjustments in October of each year, 2024, 2025, 2026, 27, and 28. As part of this rate plan, we would recommend that you do an interim or additional rate adjustment in March of 2026 to make up some of the revenue shortfall that you're experiencing, and then include additional rate adjustments in October of 26, October of 27, October of 28, and October of 2029. Now, so that's for your inside city customers. We would recommend keeping the outside city rates where they are until October of 2026. Because as a result of the last rate study, it was calculated that the cost of providing service to outside city customers is somewhere around 20 to 25% greater than it is for inside city customers. So by holding the rates where they are now and not doing the adjustment until October, you reach that 20% threshold. So the differential becomes 20% and the cost is fair, adjusted, reasonable for both inside and outside city customers. It also, to minimize the impact of this rate plan, we would also recommend that you draw down your utility fund balance by about $1 million over the next 3 years. That's once again a very common thing that utilities do. They build up a fund balance. It's a rainy day fund. Basically, it's there not only for capital improvements, but also to cover any unexpected revenue shortfalls. But it also has the additional advantage of being a source of support to enable you to phase in rate adjustments over a number of years. One of the things I've learned in my long experience as a rate consultant is that ratepayers tend to prefer gradual annual adjustments over one big adjustment. And so they don't like big changes, they don't like big surprises. But most ratepayers are rational enough to understand that costs go up over time, and so it's reasonable to expect costs to gradually increase. By doing this utility fund balance drawdown of about $1 million, you'll still have plenty of money left in your utility fund balance, and you will minimize the impact of the rate adjustments over the next couple of years. So, Okay, so this chart right here shows the current rate plan versus the proposed rate plan. In October of 2025, you adopted a 3% adjustment in your water rate and a 9% adjustment in your wastewater rate. The current plan calls for 2 to 3% water rate adjustments for each of the next 3 years, October of 2026, 2027, and 2028. It also called for an 8% wastewater rate adjustment in 2026, 2027, and 2028. Under the revised plan, we recommend that you adopt a 5% water rate adjustment in March and an 8% wastewater rate adjustment in March. And then in October of 2028, 2026, 2027, and 2028, the wastewater adjustments would stay at 8% and the water rate adjustments would be 5%. So it is a little higher than what it was before. But this tries to gradually implement the new rate plan. Now, the next few pages are just the rates themselves, which I'll just kind of quickly go over because the most important thing people want to know is what is the impact on monthly bills. So as you can see here, this is the impact on your residential inside customers. You can see the minimum charge and the volumetric rate gradually increasing over each of the next 3 years for residential inside, and this is the residential outside. As you can see, no adjustment in March of 2026 for outside customers, but adjustments beginning in October of 2026 through October of 2028. On the wastewater side, you would see the interim adjustment in March of 2026 for your residential customers and your non-residential customers. And for the outside customers, you would also see an adjustment in March of 2026 with adjustments in October of 2026 through 2028. And it's a blizzard of numbers. The key question is, what is the impact on ratepayers? This is the key chart that answers that question. Remember how I told you earlier that the average customer uses about 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service a month. They pay $97.33 for that. Under this plan, their bill would go up by about $6 a month in March to $103.71. That's about a 6.6% adjustment. You would also see similar adjustments in October of 2026 through October of 2028, about $6 to $7 a month. Obviously, if you use more water than that, and some people do, your increase would be higher. But if your average residential customer uses 5,000 gallons a month, that means somewhere between 70 and 75% of monthly water bills are going to be 5,000 gallons or less. So the vast majority of customers would see bill increases of about $6 a month or slightly less as a result of that. It's hard to take these very complex calculations and summarize them in terms of 1 or 2 numbers, but I don't like to do that. But if I did, I would say that for most residential ratepayers, the impact is about $6 a month. Commercial customers, their average usage is about 25,000 gallons a month. And so their percentage increase is still the same, about 6%, but you can see the impact would be a little bit higher in terms of absolute dollars. Because for 25,000 gallons of water, the average commercial customer pays about $523 a month, and their bill would go up by about $30 a month in March and $30 a month in each year after that. Okay, on the outside city customers, they would see a slightly less increase in March because their wastewater rate would go up, but their water rate would not. And then beginning in October of 2026 through October of 2028, they would be subjected to basically the same percentage increase as the inside city customers because they would achieve that 1.2 parity that reflects their higher cost of service. Okay, let's talk about a second alternative. A second alternative really is focused on the San Patricio Municipal Water District. You buy the lion's share of your water from them. You have no control over what they charge you. I think for the most part, what they charge you has been fair and reasonable, but it does increase on an annual basis. And so what many cities do who buy all their water from a regional provider is that they establish what's known as a pass-through rate. Whatever San Patricio charges them, they pass through to their customer. So if San Patricio increases their rate, you would increase your rate accordingly. In 2026, San Patricio's rate is $4.07 per 1,000 gallons. If you choose to adopt a separate pass-through rate for San Patricio, you would charge every customer for per thousand gallon rate. However, it would be slightly more than $4.07 because, like literally every other water utility on the planet, you experience water loss. And so you buy more water from San Patricio than you actually end up selling to your customers. You have a loss percentage of about 10%, and that's right about average. According to the AWWA, you have to be more than 20% before it becomes a, quote, problem, unquote. So at 10%, that's right about what a typical well-run utility would experience. So what we would suggest you do is you take the San Patricio rate and you bump it up by 10%. So if San Patricio's rate is $4.07, the rate you would charge to your customers would be $4.48. And so we're assuming right now that San Patricio is going to increase their rate by 7% in October of 2026 for the fiscal year 2027. In that case, their rate would be $4.35. You would increase that pass-through rate to $4.79. Now, if they make a 4% increase, your rate adjustment would be less. But, and this is a big but, if they do a 10% increase, the rate adjustment would be higher. All it is doing is passing it through. You know, you're not making money on this. You're not profiting from it. All you're doing is recovering your cost through this separate pass-through rate. Now, if you did that, you could significantly lower your volumetric rate. And so, from this very hard-to-read chart, you can see that in March of 2028, if you establish that $4.48 rate, you would be able to reduce the volumetric rate for the first 10,000 gallons from $6.47 down to $2.40. And that rate right there and the minimum charge reflects all the non-San Patricio costs. So it's a different way of getting to the same answer. But it also provides some very important information to your ratepayers because it would be a separate line item on your bill. And that separate line item is the San Patricio water costs, which, again, I can't emphasize this enough. You have no control over this. And this is simply nothing more than a pass-through of the charge that is incurred by the city of Rockport in buying this water. Yes, sir.
If we looked at Plan B, this pass-through that you're describing here, does that still include the $1.1 million buy-down out of the utility fund like Plan A did? Or is that just,
Yes.
the 1.1
Yes,
is
it
going
would.
to happen either way?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It does. These are what's known as revenue neutral.
And you're expecting the buy-down to happen either way, so.
Yes, that's built into the plan. Now, of course, you know, if it is the council's choice that they do not want to do the buy down and they would like the rate adjustment to be higher, we can certainly calculate that.
Okay.
I mean, the thing about rates is rates are established to attain the objectives that you set. If it becomes your policy decision that you do not want to draw down your general fund, or I mean your water unrestricted reserve, then we can certainly adjust this rate plan to take that into consideration.
And I'm sure this will be looked at, but I'll ask it anyway. Robbie, what do you think about a 1.1 buy down out of the utility fund? Is that comfortable, palatable for yourself?
I think it's reasonable. I think
Putting
it's
you on the
really-
spot here.
I think it's a really good idea to smooth things out and to be fair.
Okay.
Because we're asking for a rate adjustment here in March, and that's very unusual for the community. So I think a give and take is
It's not gonna put you
reasonable.
guys in any kind of a pinch. Same question I gave Ryan, it is not gonna.
No, sir. And also for the debt that we'd be looking at as what Dan was talking about, with the debt that we'd be issuing associated with these projects, they would be in the form of revenue bonds. Dan and Bob worked together in putting this together. So this was not done isolated. They worked together so that this is a comprehensive study.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the bottom line is the impact is basically the same. Now, of course, it's a different rate structure, so and it's more volume based. So there's going to be a difference of a few cents or $1 or $2 on the bills, but they're basically the same under either scenario. You can see that you're still looking at about a $6 to $7 a month increase for that residential customer. So just to summarize, as I get to my I want to show this chart right here, which shows the comparison of the two. You've got the current rate plan versus the two alternatives. As you can see, we're looking at a rate plan that by the fourth year is probably going to result in the average bill being about $7 to $10 a month more for a residential customer than what the 2023 study projected it would be. And that's just simply due to the fact that you're selling less water and the other cost increases that have occurred. But as you can see under either scenario, alternative A or B, you're kind of in the same place. The biggest advantage, to summarize this, the biggest advantage of alternative 2 is it allows you to immediately pass through the impact of any San Patricio changes. We believe they're going to increase their rate by about 7% a year. They can change their minds. They can come back and say it's only going to be 4%. If it's only 4%, then that will benefit your ratepayers. But on the alternative side, a higher rate increase by San Patricio means a higher pass-through. So the two alternatives are revenue neutral, get you the same amount of money. Now, this is a lot of information we've thrown at you. That's why we're not asking you to make a decision tonight. This is informational purposes only. What we would suggest that you do is review this. Let us know if you have any additional comments or questions. If you'd like to see any other scenarios, we're certainly happy to produce those as well. And then at a later meeting, we'll come back and you all can make a decision as to how you would like to move forward. But with that, yes, sir.
One more question.
Of course.
I think all of us understand why we're sitting here looking at this. The drought situation, which predicated the stage 3, which we've been at for quite a while, that drove down the amount of water that we're selling. If I'm the homeowner, I'm sitting home looking at this, and whether they're okay with where they end up after a few years and what have you is going to be up to them. If things change, as we've just experienced 2 years of substantial change, if we have 2 years of substantial change, it starts raining tomorrow, doesn't stop, and we sell more water and we collect more dollars, is there an opportunity to be here in a while and go, hey, we can back some of this off a little bit? We're looking at raising this. Is there any hope or opportunity for the ratepayers to go, if these couple of things happen, my water bill could go down? There's going to be increases every year, like I said, the 3 to 4% just in operating cost, but this is not from operating cost. This is a kind of a drastic situation.
Short answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
You can set a multi-year rate plan, but even if you do that, you always have the ability at any time in the future to go in and adjust it if circumstances do change. And it would be very beneficial to look at it every couple of years, or if there is any kind of sudden change in circumstances here. That's why you've got that great rate consultant that lives in North Texas you can call anytime. But the important thing though is that for growing cities like yours that are facing these kind of very unique issues, it's very important to stay on top of this. And so if there are changes, I strongly urge you to come back in and revisit it. But the multi-year plan sets you on a course. Now you could review it and decide not to make any changes, or you could review it and make changes. It's all up to you.
I appreciate you doing this. You did your job. Thank you. You did the rates. I'm gonna more preface what I have to say to the point of raising rates. Yes, okay, that's easy to do. But right now, there's not gonna be any water in 2 years. So to me, when I'm looking at these rates, we're gonna raise them, but yet we don't have a solution to how we're gonna get water to raise them to even fix that problem. So when you're asking me to go to our citizens and go, okay, well, I'm gonna raise your rate 4% this year because we're not using the same amount of water, that's a hard sell when in 2 years we might not have water because we don't have any backup of where our water's coming from. Yes, Sam Pack can come give us our 7% every year, but again, when you're out of water, that's not gonna do us any good. That's where my head goes. I mean, we can, and if they're not gonna raise the rates until October 2026, I wouldn't feel comfortable raising our citizens' rates.
I don't know how to mess with the lights.
He's going. Yeah, so to come back in March, and we still haven't even had a in-depth conversation, because I know we're doing a study right now, alternative ways we can find water here, and we haven't even had an update on that. To me, to have to throw in a rate increase in March and not even have any kind of outlet of where the water is gonna come from, I wouldn't personally feel comfortable doing that. That's kind of where my head goes to it. You did your job, great job with the Wastewater Study, that's what you were supposed to do, I appreciate that. My more issues on the other side of it, to even raise these rates at all, I'm gonna be uncomfortable not having these things set in motion first, before I can go and tell our citizens, I'm gonna raise the rate, but you're still gonna have water. We just have to do this so we can be able to handle the water situation, make sure you're getting your water and all these things. If I don't have those answers, that's not very fair for me to go and ask to keep raising these rates every year, as much as you're asking. And that's just where my head goes. And I don't know if there's an answer to that. That's just my thoughts on it. I wouldn't feel comfortable in March. If we can wait till October, then there's a whole different scenario. If we have more answers for our study of where we're gonna get the water from, if we have, what they're actually going to raise us for, then I would have a better understanding of what we need to pass through to our customers that are getting the water from us, is where I would go.
So, yes, ma'am, we will take your concerns into consideration, but the one thing that needs to be put on the table right now is we are already behind because we only predicted a 5% raise in the past 2 years, and San Patricio has raised us almost 17%. So we're eating the difference of that every single month. We're eating the difference. That's why we're kind of a proponent of the pass-through rate, because like Mr. Jackson said, we don't have control of that. Now, we made an estimate based on historical data, and they jacked the water prices up. So we've been subsidizing, for lack of a better term, the difference between the 5% increase and the 17% increase. So that's why we're asking for one so soon, is to stop the bleeding.
And I completely understand that. But that ask, when they gave our rate up, that was back in October. We understood what situation we're in. That's where I go, okay, we've already made this decision. We already said, hey, for next year, this is what we're gonna do for the water rates, and then we're gonna go from there, do the study, do all these other things. And now we're coming back again after we told the citizens, this is what we're gonna do, and now we're asking for another upcharge, and we can't even promise having water after 2 years. And I understand we are bleeding, and that's unfortunate that we're in the situation. But we've already made that decision back in October, and just to come back in March without any kind of update of any study or where we're gonna get the water from, how things are gonna get fixed in the future, it's a hard ask where we have to go out into our public and we have to tell them that. Like, we've already made that decision. So I just don't know why we would have to do it. I understand, you have your points because you're running a business, you're running a city, you have to charge money. I understand that, but we had that conversation back in October. We're all under the understanding where we're at. I feel like without any further information, without the study, without all that stuff, we have to stick to what we decided and what we told the citizens until at least the next budget year where we're supposed to be making these decisions. That's just where I'm coming from. Again, I understand we're bleeding and we have to fix it somehow. But we can't charge, even if eventually charging rates all you want, but eventually you're gonna run out of water and you don't fix those things. It doesn't make sense to me.
I've got a further question. If you'd recommended March and October, which is a little bit of a deviation, good point on her concerns about going back to these folks. Because we've already commissioned Freeze and Nichols to look at the water supply report, which is it's a completely different subject than we're talking about here, but it's darn sure parallel. They are a lot of crossover. Do we have the ability, are we allowed, if we get that study back in May or something like that, and we choose not to have that rate increase in March, and what have you, can we do it in June or something like that in October? Or is it just March and October? Okay, and, because I think very good points. I think all of us probably like as much data as we can to look at this before we just whack them in the head with a rate increase. But, so we have that option, it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how, Robbie, I'm trying to remember, how long we been in stage 3 now? It's been a while. Ryan, you may remember?
It started January 1st of 2025, I believe, was
Okay,
stage.
so we're a smidgen over a year at this now, so.
Was stage 3. And yes, and we're losing money, and the longer we lose money, the higher higher the rates are gonna have to be to recapture. And that's kind of the whole, that's the balancing act. And that's, we're trying to stop the bleeding. We're trying to give up, as what Dan's put together, is we're trying to dig into fund balance to smooth the pain, to get back where we can try to tread water. Because I don't know if you caught what Dan's put together, but if the average household use is 5,000 gallons, and if we go into curtailment along with what we're looking at doing, and I don't know if you read the paper today, but with Sinton kicking and screaming and slowing down things with Corpus trying to get permitting done, it's looking more and more like we're gonna go there. So if you go into curtailments, that's gonna be the maximum. We were looking at our contract today, it's 50%. So now you're going from 5,000 gallons to 2,500 gallons. So if you think, so what you're looking at on rates, you're now taking those rates that's needing to support, and you're basically, and I'm nascent at this, is probably doubling. Because you're going from 5,000 to 2,500. So if you don't do something in the interim, something's, to me, is better than nothing. You're potentially looking at doubling, if not more, just to catch up if you're going there.
Because that static cost of operating a water system that Ryan has to put up with, that's always there.
Right.
Your water usage and what you're getting for it and what you're charging for it go all over the place, but he still has that static, several $1 million, I'm sure, a year just to have a water delivery system.
Exactly right.
Cost recovery.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at doing, what's built into the budget this year, and we're talking about these transfers and stuff like that. Part of that transfer was to help try to use part of some of that utility fund balance to help shore up the general fund. Because I know that's something council has been very concerned about, was to try to help get that general fund up to 180 days. Utility fund is a little bit over 180 days. So this isn't an accident. So we're trying to help get there to get us, because hurricane season's coming, always. So that's not an accident. Doing this is gonna hurt that plan. I'll just be honest on that. And it could hurt us also in terms of trying to issue, if we do go there, trying to issue any revenue bonds, because you also have to have additional coverage there. They usually have some covenants where you have to have additional coverage.
And several
Fund
ifs.
balance coverage.
Several ifs between now and then, but if we were to utilize that 1.1 like you talked about and buy this down a little bit and take some of the pain out for the voters and residents here, we're not looking to replenish that or come back in the future and get that, or we're just gonna spend that money. I don't wanna be here a year and a half from now and go, hey, remember that? Because there are some things that we're doing this year in the budget that we're coming and go, hey, we spent this, we need to put it back. Are we gonna come back and looking for that 1.1 in the future and a rate increase or out of the general fund or whatever?
I certainly think over time we would look to build it back up. We're not gonna come back next year and say we took it out this year, we need to put it back next year.
Okay, yeah, and have some monumental rate increase or something.
No, but not overly so.
Okay.
It doesn't serve the citizens
Yeah.
or anyone for us to be having substantially over 180 days. 180 days is what
Okay.
we generally
So we-
recommend, and that's what we try to stay at. If you have more, then that's not fair to the ratepayers or the taxpayers.
Okay, so we could spend that money if we so choose, and we're not gonna get clobbered with it next year at a one-time thing. We'll eventually get it back in there over some period of time. Well, that's good to know, so, they wouldn't come back looking for that 1.1 out of the ratepayers right away.
So,
It's just before the next hurricane, sorry.
yeah, so I was just gonna say, so remember also reducing the CIP by 50% and then spending $1 million out of the fund balance are things that we were putting in to offset what we are asking for. So we're doing some stopgap on our side in addition to asking the customers to do some of the stopgap. So, like Dan said, we're not asking you to make a decision tonight because it's a lot. So definitely ask your questions tonight as we go forward, if you have more questions, get them through to us, and then we'll come back probably not until March for a decision. Being that 2 council members are absent, I want to bring them up to speed as well before we make any type of decision.
All right, two things, Mayor, if I may. Once more, we've got a statement slash question. In this, if we do the pass-through rate, or, Plan B, I can't foresee anything that the city of Corpus doing right now nothing they're doing right now is cheap. So, and at 8%, whatever city of Corpus sells their water to Sampat, I don't know if 8% covers it. Just everything that they're trying to do right now, to bring more water online, slash desal, all their projects. The pass-through fee at 10% or whatever it may be, we could see a drastic jump in rates, because Sampat would be doing the same thing. They're buying the water from Corpus, so if their rates jump up drastically, they're gonna have to cover those costs too. So I see that the pass-through rate is being the best option. That way, it's automatically, they do it, we do it. We do in our contracts, we looked at today, we do have a little bit of time frame in there from when their rates jump up to when we have to do it. But is there I guess there's not a way to forecast that, what Corpus may do with their rates and all their projects they have coming down the line.
Well, you certainly are correct that the Corpus water options are very expensive, particularly the desal option that they're pursuing. But that's an issue that all of us are going to be facing in the not too distant future as desalination becomes more prevalent. Desalination is a great source of water, but it is not cheap. But the question we're gonna all have to answer as a society is what do we want? Expensive water or no water? Because that's rapidly becoming the alternatives. So yes, the more Corpus buys into the desalination, the higher the rates are going to get. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because there's an awful lot of water out there in that Gulf.
The Gulf isn't gonna run out of water, I don't believe. Okay, so that being said, Plan B looks like the better option.
Yes.
As far as just so it's one for one, whatever they get raised, we don't have to come back and do the study and it's a pass-through fee, I guess is the best way to put it, as you stated in here. I guess the second question, could you, in your knowledge and experience of doing a whole lot of rate studies and a whole lot of utility studies and stuff, can you dive a little bit deeper into the transfers that come out of our utility fund and go
Yes.
and cover the general fund, and how common that is, and what some of those things that covers?
I would characterize it as becoming increasingly common. You see a lot of utilities that don't have any transfers at all. But what that really means is it's a hidden subsidy of water rates by the general fund. Because if a city council, administrative department, a building department, a police and fire administration, if they're all providing service to the water utility, and they all are, and there is no general fund, there is no transfer from the water fund to offset that cost, that's basically a hidden subsidy. More and more utilities are beginning to recognize this and understand this, and they are putting in a transfer. Now, transfers, there's a very scientific way it can be done to determine what the actual transfer is. It's called a cost allocation study. What is typically done is you look at every department in the city and you determine what services are they specifically providing to the water fund, and then you can quantify that by calculating based on the salaries of the people that are doing it, the materials that they're using, and all of that. Overhead, that kind of thing. That can certainly be done. But what I can also tell you is this: based on my experience, the general sweet spot of general fund transfers is anywhere between 5 and 15% of gross revenues. Your gross revenues right now are about $17 million. And so your $1.7 million transfer is right at 10%. So you're right there in the sweet spot. You can do a study and you can scientifically quantify it, but it probably is going to come in right about where you are right now, based on, again, it's anecdotal. Every city is unique, and it could end up being different. But I have always personally thought that this is a very good financial instrument, because what it does is it incorporates these costs into the true cost of water. Water is a product, like a McDonald's hamburger or a gallon of gasoline or anything else. costs are incurred in producing this product. And it is not unreasonable to expect your ratepayers to pay all of those costs. And some of those costs are other city services. So that's why it's becoming increasingly common. It is accepted, it is generally accepted by the AWWA as a reasonable cost of doing business, and it's been endorsed by public utility commissions all over the country.
And that, in your, in the charts, it showed, we were flat. We really didn't have any transfers, and then we kind of
Yeah.
did this, and now hopefully we're plateauing it at the
Yes.
10%. But we had to get to 10% from zero.
Right, it was, and when we did the first study, it was a lot lower, but it has gone up. Do you want to explain that?
Yes, yes, sir. In part of that was to cover the cost, the Condrey study that we did. We did have a salary survey, and that was alone in excess of $1 million, of course, across the city. Also, we had windstorm that we had to add that was allocated to the utilities as well for this building. So we've had some significant costs that have been added on here recently, and that have helped drive that increase.
And one final thing, some cities do a fund transfer with just one line item. Some cities do it by a combination of line items. They call it a pass-through, a payment in lieu of taxes, a franchise tax, some do a combination of all of it. What matters is the bottom line. What's the total amount that's transferred? And in your case, the total amount that's transferred is about 10% of your gross revenues, which again is very, very common for the utilities, at least the ones I work for.
And we say that 1.7 or 10% where we're at right now, so 1.7 million. If we do not take that out of the enterprise utility fund and as a transfer over to the general fund, we'd have to make that up in taxes ad valorem.
Absolutely, yes.
Right?
We would.
We'd have to cover that.
Right, because, again, it's a hidden, it could be considered a hidden subsidy if you don't do the funds transfer. And every dollar that is spent subsidizing the water fund is a dollar that's not spent for other city services. That's one of the many, many reasons why this is good financial policy.
And, Robbie, Vanessa, 1.7 or 1.7, what would that equate to in pennies or for us?
I don't want to just say off the top of
Gotcha.
my head, I'm sorry.
I was thinking it was a penny. A penny was $1 million, but that could have been the debt side, and I didn't go back
Right,
and
when we were doing all this.
double,
debt.
triple check myself on that one. But so it would be reasonable to state that 1.7 million would be a hit to the ad valorem taxes. We would have to increase taxes to cover that cost.
Absolutely.
Or we could reduce the COPS grant.
The cops grant.
You got another question, Brad?
No, sir, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it just sounds like that transfer, wherever the dollar amount ends up being, as long as it's hovering in the percent that you're talking about, especially for transparency, for the voters and residents here and what have you, when they see us doing that, it looks like we're properly being transparent, showing them what we're doing. We're not providing a hidden subsidy, and basically keeping our books clean. And the fund that we're looking to bring it from and put it sounds like it's doing fairly good anyway. So if the tables were turned and that particular fund was very, very low, or we were already struggling there, but it sounds like you've got your 180 days there, and so it's not gonna hurt terribly painful, that particular fund, to be transparent and do it right. Am I right there, Robbie?
Right, and it's to cover the cost. It's so that property taxes are not subsidizing an enterprise fund.
I absolutely,
So-
that's an excellent way of putting it, thank you, that actually, better than I was thinking there. But when we're transparent like that and we show these trackable transfers and what have you, you can say, hey, we're being right to the penny, we're transferring this money over so we don't have to look at a property tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you, and I said, you bring it back, obviously you want the other two council people to be here, just when you bring it back, just any information, any extra, that's gonna be helpful, anything that we can do to help serve why we're even talking about this, where it's gonna help them in the long run more than anything, so, cause we can't explain it to just foot a bill, we wanna explain why we have to do this for the long run, so, that's where I'm asking for, please. Okay, thank you for the study, like I said, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, do you think we could get an update on when that freeze nickel study may be given to us?
If memory serves me, and sometimes it doesn't, but, I think they said early summer.
Yeah, it's about 6 months.
Yeah, it's a good 6 month, but remember, that's not the only thing we're relying on. We're participating in all of the water groups going around and seeing who's, what everybody else is doing and what our other options are outside of that study, so we may,
Yeah, if you wanna bring it to March, is that we are looking at, any information or any updates or anything that you have at that time would be very much appreciated.
got it.
I guess that is me, I forgot. I'm in charge tonight, sorry. We are going to go to, city manager's update.
Back
Thank
on,
you.
thanks, Dan. Again, on the water, we've been going to several regional meetings to see what's going on. We're pretty reliant on Corpus Christi, or solely reliant on Corpus Christi. And, so we've kind of been keeping a pulse on what they're doing. I understand there may be some state intervention. It's hard for us being at the behest of another political body, that wants to play politics. So, if the state intervenes, that may not be the best thing. I mean, that may not be the worst thing for us. But like I said, we are looking at other options. We're keeping a close finger on the pulse. The critical day right now, I think is November, when they've said that they'll go into a water emergency. That's on their dashboard. You guys can all go look at that and track where that is. So everything we can do that pushes that November date out any is helpful, because that allows more time to develop more sources. But we're on top of it as much as we can be. And then we have the freeze and nickel study coming in that'll hopefully give us some more alternatives. And we're just gonna keep monitoring it and see where we're going.
Okay. City council report. Ward 2.
Just wanted to mention, I think I've done this several months ago, but it bears repeating again. Sometimes when I get telephone calls from Ward 2 and the citizens are asking for this or that, or questions, and I've had to reach out to many different, some of them sitting here tonight and other departments that are not here. But just want to say thank you for the responses. When the citizens have needed something, every division down the line has helped me and get the answer that they needed. And sometimes it's some work or attention that was needed out there. But just a general thank you to all the divisions, and thank you, Vanessa, for your team. I am hearing back from the folks out there that they appreciate the responsiveness.
Ward 3.
We do have a upcoming event, although it's not in the city of Rockport. We're gonna be out at Le Mardi Gras this weekend for Lamar Gras. We'll be in the parade, and that's a good event. Supports Lamar Volunteer Fire Department and the community out there. So go out there and get some crawfish, some gumbo, some etouffee. Go spend some money out there in Lamar. They'll appreciate it. I don't think I have anything else from Ward 3 at this time. Thank you, ma'am.
I really don't have anything to report, but thank you, Councilman Anderson. I think, yes, you guys deserve a thank you. You guys work hard. I know we can be difficult, but we do appreciate it, so thank you. And I think that's it for tonight, right? No executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.